By now we all know what this is. This is Blackwater Park by Opeth. The only Opeth album at this moment that I have in my ever-expanding CD collection. But I will be getting more Opeth albums pretty soon, probably for Christmas and shortly thereafter. But we are now going to be talking about this album, Blackwater Park. For some people, this is arguably considered one of the all-time greatest metal albums to ever been released in the history of heavy metal. And for good reason. I mean, this album definitely continued the horizon expansion for Opeth, considering how successful Still Life was. 2 years go by, 2001 comes by, and we get this album. And with Blackwater Park, this album just absolutely just takes everything, most of everything they've done in the previous four, it kind of came together for this magnum opus. Because you just have some very, very beautiful, amazing tracks on this particular album. Now, this ain't a concept album like it was in the previous two, My Arms Rehearse and Still Life, but you get different stories going on throughout each song passing by on the album. Plus, not to mention, this is also an interesting album for Opeth, because this was the first time for future albums to come that Opeth's working with Porcupine Tree's singer and guitarist, the frontman of Porcupine Tree, Steven Wilson. And Steven Wilson and Porcupine Tree, they're both awesome. Like, Porcupine Tree, some people would say, is like a companion band to Opeth, where Opeth's a little more heavier and more extreme and brutal with their progressive sound with the death metal, and Porcupine Tree kind of takes some of the heaviness of Opeth, but not to the extreme or to the brutal, more like a traditional progressive metal heaviness, especially Porcupine Tree's material in the 2000s, like in Absentia and Fear of a Blank Planet, which, by the way, Fear of a Blank Planet is probably a very good companion album to Blackwater Park, in my opinion. But with Steven Wilson at the production helm and collaborating with the band, and actually doing some background vocals, as well as some clean vocals on a couple tracks, wow. That marriage between Steven Wilson and Mike Lackerfie was pretty much made. Not in a gay way, but like in a musical way. Because they came together and made some of the greatest and most beautiful progressive metal songs you could ever hear in your life. You kick off the album with a near 10.5 minute opener, The Leper Affinity, which is just a phenomenal track to open up a classic, all-time, legendary album like this, and the song just went everywhere, every which way possible, and it just hooked you from the time the song started till the time the song ended, and that's pretty much how this whole album was. But the next song we get into, which was Bleak, which was a over 9 minute track, this song had a lot of great stuff going for it, and also this is one of the tracks that Steven Wilson has some of his moments. Like, there's a part in the song where you hear him singing, and Steven Wilson has a great voice to him as well, just like Michael. And it fit with the part of the song, and Bleak was just one of those really, really intricate tracks. While every song on the album is really intricate, this song just had a lot of a lot of great songwriting for it. But then you get into one of the shorter tracks of the album at 6 minutes, and it was actually a single released, and it was the song Harvest. And Harvest is a very beautiful track. While it's mostly acoustic, you do have a lot of electric parts in it. Excuse me. But Harvest was a track that had all clean singing, and it was the harmonies with Michael and Steven Wilson on this track. Some of the most beautiful harmonic vocals I've ever heard in music. Like, wow, just their voices together just went absolutely, it goes hand in hand, and it was perfect for each other. And Harvest was just one of those very beautiful tracks, one of my personal favorite songs of the album. But then you get into another favorite, and it's a favorite among a lot of Opeth fans, The Draperty Falls, and this is the second longest song of the album at nearly 11 minutes. One of my all-time favorite Opeth songs right here. This album has a lot of my all-time favorite Opeth songs, like Harvest, excuse me, like Harvest, Draperty Falls, and the closing title track, Blackwater Park, which we'll get into at the end. But Draperty Falls, with the acoustic beginning and then into the electric, and it's just going everywhere with the riffs, and then it gets into the acoustic with some cool stuff going, and then Michael's clean voice at the part. Wow. Absolutely beautiful. And then after moments of that, then you get into the heaviness in the middle of the song. It gets super, super heavy and aggressive with Michael's voice as well as the music as a whole. And then at the very end, you get a lot of the double bass drums, which was going on, which added to the song's intensity at the end. But at the end, you didn't hear really any death metal vocals. You hear more of the harmonies between Michael and Steven Wilson, with the heaviness in the background, and then it fades out, and then it gets into Dirge for November, which was a near 8-minute track. And wow, Dirge for November, wow, absolutely incredible. But then you get to Funeral Portrait, and then you start to see that, wow, the band's really trying to do something pivotal here. Patterns in the Ivy, which was a near 2-minute instrumental, was a great instrumental, but then we get to another one of my all-time favorite Opeth songs, Blackwater Park, the title track. 12 minutes, no clean vocals on this song, surprisingly enough. This is actually all death metal done. And wow, you just get some of Michael's most brutal vocals you could ever hear in Opeth's career with this song, along with some of the most beautiful parts, and it's so expansive, where it starts off with the heavy riffing, and then in the middle you get a lot of an acoustic feel with some effects, like cool effects with Mellotron and maybe some keyboards from Steven Wilson, but you just get a beautiful middle part with the guitars and some of the with the electric guitars, how they're playing it softly, and then with the acoustic, and then back into the heaviness. And wow, this song just went absolutely every which way possible, and it's just one of those memorable songs in Opeth's career that will always remain a special place in my heart, because this is actually, I think, to my understanding, the first Opeth song I ever heard, and it could possibly be my favorite, or if not, maybe number 2, because there will be another song we're going to talk about in a later album we're going to be talking about that I absolutely adore. But the reissue, you get a couple bonus tracks, like the song Still Day, Beneath the Sun, and Patterns in the Ivy Part 2, which has lyrics in it, and it's longer. But with the standard edition, like what I have here, it's just an absolute, it's one of the most perfect metal releases you could ever hear. Kind of like Metallica Master of Puppets, or Black Sabbath Paranoid, or Iron Maiden's Number of the Beast, or like Death Symbolic, or something like that. I mean, and even Accept Blind Rage, to me at least. This is up in that league of perfect metal albums, and in my opinion, this is the best Opeth album you could get into. For any fan who wants to listen to Opeth, who are fans of rock or metal, this is the album to start, because this is the album that set Opeth on the path to success. Bigger than Still Life, but Still Life was the beginning of it. Blackwater Park was the inception of it, really. I'm going all over the place with some of those words, but it's just this album's just so fucking amazing that words can't describe it. You have to listen to it for yourself in order to really get to really understand what I'm trying to say, if anything at all. But another 10 out of 10 for Opeth. My favorite Opeth album, and it will always be my favorite because this is the album that got me into the band, and after listening to the whole album, wow. And also, this was ranked by many people as the best metal release of the 2000s. And I tell you, let me get another album. Because this album came out in 2001, there were a lot of debates going on as to which of these two albums were better. Opeth Blackwater Park or Tool Lateralis, because they both came out the same year. Both have similar ideas as far as the musicianship. They're both prog albums. While Opeth's progressive death metal, Tool is more of like a little more of like an arty progressive metal. But these two albums aren't great, but Blackwater Park gets this by a slim margin, and Tool Lateralis is another perfect album in the world of perfect albums for heavy metal. But let me know, what did you guys think of Blackwater Park? And to anybody who is watching this video that isn't familiar with this album, definitely listen to this album. This album is one of the greatest albums in the world of music, let alone metal. And there you go. But the next two albums we're going to be talking about was intended to be a double album, but they got released separately, and I'll review them separately. Deliverance and Damnation. But until we get to that point, peace out and see you later.